Welcome to the 2016 Teachers for Social Justice Curriculum Fair. This is our 15th annual, and the theme this year is Defund Policing, Fund Schools and Communities. Think of a history fair or a science fair, except that it's teachers bringing their trifold boards and setting up and sharing their work towards teaching for social justice. We also have resource organizations that provide curriculum for teachers. We have workshops that are about our theme and about other issues as well. We always use the curriculum fair as an educational and organizing space to be able to work together for a more peaceful and just world. We do international solidarity, and we are an 18-year organization in Chicago, USA.
We'll be starting in 2 minutes. Who's a teacher here at Uplift High School, man? Lift it up.
And I'm really honored to welcome you all to Uplift Community High School. As Asi said, I am a teacher here, and I'm also one of the founders of this school. This school is a regular CPS high school, despite its charter-sounding name. And it was founded by 3 teachers from the community of Uptown, so that's something pretty unique about it. So Uplift has a long history of fighting not only for education, but also for affordable housing and better health care. And we teach our students that this school, Uplift, was born out of that struggle. Besides education, the biggest ongoing struggle here in Uptown has been for affordable housing. I just want to let you know a little bit about the community that you're located in. When I first moved here, Uptown looked very different than it looked when you drove in here today. It was extremely diverse and a primarily low-income community where people came together to fight against the actions of slum landlords, fight against arson for profit, and we had a lot of victories due to the ongoing organizing. We even were able to fight the city to get them to build 150 units of scattered site housing up here, which was a victory kind of unheard of in Chicago. So through building by building organizing, through protests, through marches, through lawsuits, we were able to stave off gentrification for a long time. But as in your communities, it's an uphill battle, and we're not exactly winning it today. The police are complicit in this. They are a tool of gentrifiers every step of the way.
Yep.
Right. Here in Uptown, we've seen the police back in the day involved in destabilizing buildings. So landlords would cut back on services and refuse to do repairs, and police would fail to respond to calls, or when they did respond, they would create conflict and make the situation worse. And over time, situations in buildings became so destabilized that people would move out, and the landlords would then sell the buildings to real estate speculators. As the community became wealthier and whiter, the police have become people who are at the beck and call of the new residents. Those new residents want to reshape the community of Uptown in their own image, more or less. They want to get rid of anyone that they perceive is negatively affecting their property values. So they've used the CAPS program to criminalize everyday activities like hanging on the corner, like sitting on a CTA bench. In fact, in Uptown, it's gotten so bad that they took away all the CTA benches because they so much don't want people loitering on them. They've used CAPS to target whole groups of people, and none of us are surprised to know that one of those groups is young men of color, but they've also targeted residents of subsidized housing and the homeless. Here today, there's a group called Uptown Tent City, which has been working recently not only to help the homeless who are living under the viaducts in Uptown to survive, but battling the ongoing police harassment that they face nearly every day as police come through and take their belongings, violate Chicago ordinances that give them certain rights on the public way, because they're looking to clean people out out of Uptown that they feel like don't belong here. Make it so uncomfortable for them to stay that they choose to leave. So when TSJ said their theme was defund the police, well, that fits right in with things going on here, just as it fits in with what's going on in your communities.
Our curriculum covers a variety of areas, rethinking mathematics. On issues of science, we have a people's curriculum for the earth, which is teaching our students the preservation of our earth and the need for dealing with global warming and the vital issues that are related to saving our earth. Our first major publication was Rethinking Columbus, and with the anniversary in 1994, we put out Rethinking Columbus, and we've sold close to 1 million copies of that book. And it's a huge, popular book that has helped change the narrative around who Columbus was and what it's meant for the Americas. I'm also the vice president of the Milwaukee Public School Board, elected board member. So was a teacher for 17 years in Milwaukee Public Schools, and am fully immersed in the struggle for progressive and social justice curriculum.
The number one question for Chicago is, are we broke or are we not? The answer is yes. We're going on a path to nothing, no possibilities, and no money for you. But if the answer to the question is we are not broke, then we have possibilities and abundance, and that's the world I want to live in. The book is called Chicago is Not Broke, Funding the City We Deserve. Mayor Emanuel, just a few weeks ago, reached into his slush fund and took out $88 million for the schools because the CTU backed him up against the wall and demanded more resources for the schools. And the mayor reached into his black box of TIF money and took out $88 million. But according to our book and the research we've done in Chicago is Not Broke, Funding the City We Deserve, we lay out another $612 million that could have gone to the schools. So it's chump change. So let's put it this way. When it comes to issues of justice, there's no money. When it comes to issues of the mayor's friends, there's always money.
The CTU Black Caucus started initially in 2012 in response to the decline of black educators. There was data that showed that our numbers had gone from 44% of the CTU ranks to 19%. So we organized to get together and try to figure out, what were some of the issues that were leading to the decline of black educators. After taking a break, we reinvigorated ourselves. So now we've identified the evaluation system called REACH, the budgeting system that's being used in Chicago, the student-based budgeting, the laws, state laws, PARA and the Mandatory Acts, and we find that those are things that we know have directly led to the decline of black educators. So our hope is to address those specific issues and hopefully use ESSA as a tool.
In 2012, as the board started picking up the massive school closings, before the closing of 50 schools, which was 2013, in 2012, they voted to turn around one of the schools in the Brownsville Village, close another, and to phase out the high school, which was Walter Diet High School. The community kind of stepped back and put the emphasis onto Diet High School, and they formed a coalition. The coalition to revitalize Diet High School was scheduled to be closed in 2015. It ultimately was closed in 2015, but this coalition led by Coco fought very, very hard, and the culmination of that was the 34-day hunger strike, which was in the summer of 2015, that eventually forced the district to reopen a closed neighborhood public high school. As far as we know, the only time in United States history that a school that has been closed by a district has been reopened by pressure by the community, led by the community with people working together.
I think we have to start from the kind of start with what every community needs, and some communities enjoy and other communities don't, which is the right of self-determination. to determine how institutions impact your life. Institutions that you pay for with your tax dollars. So do these institutions operate through your lens, or your lens of how you see your children? Or do these institutions function in a way that someone else's view of your community is heaped upon your community? And your struggle is a constant state of being able to define yourself, to be able to define your children. A young man named Brian Burney was assaulted by a police officer because he had to use the bathroom. Now he's 17 years old, he can't hold it, he doesn't have a pass. He says, you know, can I please go to the bathroom? I can't hold it. The police officer saying no. He has an orange in his hand, he slams the orange on the ground. The police officer hits him in the face and chokes him out. And the little brother, I was at the press conference and the little brother saying he thought of Eric Garner. He thought he was going to die. And one of his white brothers stood up and said, you know, at my high school, we smoke probably more weed than they do. We do all the dirt that they do. Except there's one police officer in our building and we don't walk through metal detectors. And I think so when we're dealing with what the issue is around public education, for us, we start there.
And so what we have to continually do is be critical in our analysis of things that are happening in our schools, and also critical of our resistance to how we counteract those things. So to be more specific about it, I'm thinking about even in this school setting and even in this school building, when I came in and there was a metal detector and they had the big signs about, you know, students have to come in and go through these detectors every day. What does that do in a psychological process for a young person? What does that signal to them about what type of space a school is? And so those are like one of the questions that we're thinking about as we're trying to think about community schools, is we don't want it to be a program that is allocation of services. So when you look at the contract language, there's going to be a lot of services, a lot of facilities, a lot of kind of like just line item things that need to be added to these schools, and those have value and merit, right? But more so, we want to understand how can we bolster a school community that institutes some vibrancy, some connectedness, some relationships to bring back the human elements in school, so that the first thing you see is not a metal detector, but someone who you know and you have a relationship and who's invested in you as an individual.
So basically what we're talking about here is Chicago Public Schools have really created a lot of new policies and procedures that are hurting our students with disabilities. And so what's happening is they created these procedures so they can deny students services or create obstacles to parents getting special education services for their children, and frankly they're doing it to cut money. We know that, you know, Chicago Public Schools are always trying to cut money off the backs of our students, and in this case off our most vulnerable students, our students with disabilities, and we've really seen this great harms to our schools. We have cases here where there are classrooms with students with very severe needs, with severe disabilities, and Chicago Public Schools have cut the classroom assistants so much that teachers say that when there's a fire drill or an emergency, the teacher has to choose who to save in these scenarios because they don't have enough classroom assistants to actually carry the students out. So this really is a crisis, special education, and the parents and teachers, even lawyers and classroom assistants are uniting to fight back against this, and because we have to, because it's really a crisis and it's hurting our students.
My name is Catherine Henchek, and I'm here as a member of Parents for Teachers and the parent of a 9th grader with special needs who's a student at Vaughan Occupational High School. And I've been attending the workshop at the Teachers for Social Justice meeting about special needs. And my child's now 14, and he's now functioning academically at probably around a kindergarten, first grade level. And I never really thought that he may even be able to get to that stage. I was worried that he'd never be able to read. And the only reason he's been able to do that is because we've had so much support from teachers, gen ed teachers, paraprofessionals, special ed teachers, nurses, all the different therapists and counselors that he's had. And I'm really worried that that's not going to continue. We have a budget shortfall, which we're seeing that they are cutting a lot of those support staff. It's making it harder for children to get paraprofessionals and seekers to help them. We're cutting nursing staff, we're cutting counselors, and these are the people that really help our children succeed. And I think my child can go on and become a productive member of society. He could go on and get a job and be part of this community. But to get there, he needs that help. And I'm really afraid that that help is going to be cut.
Sí, vine a este encuentro específicamente al taller de educación especial. Me interesaba el tema porque tengo un hijo en Aguares que tiene algunas necesidades.
I came here to the workshop on special education rights because I am a parent and I have a child at Juárez and he has a disability.
Creo que es mucha información y muchos obstáculos para poder acceder bien a la educación especial.
I think that there are a lot of obstacles to really access special education well.
Y muchas veces pocos recursos para los padres en términos del idioma.
And there are not many resources for parents in Spanish.
Yo creo que lo que más se necesita en las escuelas, y creo que es en todas las escuelas, que el tiempo para la evaluación y para implementar un proceso de educación especial sea más corto.
I think that the process for getting your student an evaluation and getting special education services should be shorter.
Creo que también falta mucho más conocimiento de padres, pero también de profesores y estudiantes sobre todo lo que es la educación especial y a lo que tendríamos derecho.
I think that there's a lot of misinformation among parents and teachers and students about what's going on with special education and also our rights.
I am a charter school special educational teacher, and I am not only am in the classroom, I am also the special educational representative for our contract talks for Aspira. The things that interest me are very large sizes of special educational students and not a whole lot of support. I have 17 students in a separate setting classroom. There are no para supports, and the classes are getting larger and larger because more students are coming in. And there are no supports, and it is very stressful. In that separate setting classroom, cognitive levels are all over the place, and trying to handle it for the curriculum and modify everything that they're trying to learn is very difficult. Without the time, there is no time to do most of the management. Is very, very difficult. And I heard about the task force for special education and the new mandates that are rolling down. And yes, I am very interested in how they are going to affect me, because they are starting to affect me now. The new testing that students have to do prior to being in their IEP meetings for their re-eval is, when is it going to happen, and how am I going to try to figure out where that time is coming from, because my schedule is really, really packed right now.
I work with families of children with developmental delays who are just entering Chicago Public Schools for the first time, and I am seeing countless families being turned away from Chicago Public Schools. I've had students be told, their parents were told that they are fine, they are performing above average, and then later they go and get diagnosed as having autism. So we're having CPS turn away so many of our children, and I don't know what to do and where to send them. We're having this mass exodus out of Chicago Public Schools, so I came here today to speak with some folks from the Chicago Special Ed Task Force to talk about how we can educate students and parents alike to know their rights, to fight against the illegal things that are being done every day in CPS, and to consider what kind of speaking up we need to do with the Board of Education, as well as corporations across this state that are draining money that should be going towards our public schools. And we've been brainstorming and forming connections across the city, and I am really looking forward to continuing to work with them on direct action, know your rights, and other ways of standing up for the free and appropriate public education that all of our children deserve.
And I attended the special education breakout session at the Teachers for Social Justice curriculum fair today because I'm concerned about the cuts to special education that are affecting my students. and frankly also my job security. I'm very concerned that there is almost a witch hunt to try to discredit special educators and portray us as being unfit for our profession, which is a profession that I love and care very deeply about. So I learned a lot at this session today about legal ways that I can push back against some of the mandates that are being put upon us by the district. And I plan to bring this information back to the other special education teachers, paraprofessionals, and clinicians at my school so that we can be united in our resistance to the district trying to deny services to our kids.